Greetings, O weary travelers of cyberspace, and welcome to Roll of a Tangent, episode 37. My name is Nikita Zuev, and tonight I am once again joined by my co-hosts Robert Gibson and XJ. Tonight, we offer you a tale of human nature, written by John Wyndham. The short story is named Time to Rest, though those wouldn't do anything but what the title suggests. And here goes the summary. The story is about 12 pages long if you're reading it in A5 format. So I would recommend reading it, but if you don't want to, or if you just want a refresher, here goes. Sometime in the distant future, when humanity has colonized Mars, lives a man from Earth named Bert. He spends his existence moving through the endless quiet deserts of the Red Planet. However, he is not alone on this rock. Martians, an entire family of them, have made their refuge next to a decrepit tower of old. They are ever thankful for when Bert visits, as his prowess with the mechanics and the Martian's inability to match it creates a symbiotic relationship between the two. He especially has a deeper bond with one of the female Martians, Annika, who challenges Bert and his ideals from time to time. Bert is the self-reflective type, one who feels bad about the past transgressions of his own race when they first colonized Mars, but also has the decency to see the struggle of his peers. They, like him, are suffering in their own way on this harsh planet, and Earth will never be their home again. We learn that Bert and those on Mars are lonely survivors of an unknown tragedy that befell our planet, a destructive cataclysm that made every human in our universe a celestial orphan. Now, the world of our Genesis is nothing but rocks that slowly drift around Jupiter. Mars has its own ghosts, the mysterious Great Ones, a past civilization that built great many things on the planet, including the before mentioned tower. Who they were and what they did, none know. While serving his function as the handyman, Bert is confronted by Annika, who bids him to stay, pleading that a life of a drifter must come to an end, as it will bring him nothing but pain. The next morning, he is approached by Xylo, Annika's daughter, and the cause of this action changes something in Bert. He confronts his life, his identity, and the immeasurable dread of losing his home planet. But nothing can satiate his soul. In the end, Bert leaves the tower, though Annika believes he will return soon enough, the lost child of the middle age that he is. That is time to rest. Now, I'm sure many of you have many things to say, but we'll start with Robert this time. Robert, how do you feel about today's offering?
Hmm. I think that the tale is dominated by its imagery. It's probably the reason why I don't get depressed by this extremely tragic tale. There's nothing worse than seeing your home planet destroyed, I'm sure. Probably getting stuck in Dracula's castle or something would be far preferable to being in a spaceship and watching the Earth blow up. Um, now, that is a reason for uh, shunning the story because I don't like depressing stories. And yet, this one, I've read it several times and I really enjoy it. And I think it's because, as I say, it's dominated by the imagery, in particular by the thought of Bert chugging along the enormous Martian canals in his home built boat. These canals are so wide that they're almost like long seas, really. And the whole feel of it is very gentle and peaceful. And I could envy somebody that sort of vagabond life. Now, that's part of it, and I'm seeking to explain why I like the story. Another thing is Wyndham's. skill in writing, he is a very urbane writer who manages to write about grim realities in such a way that they pull the wool over your eyes. Well, his style pulls the wool over one's eyes, so one forgets the grimness in enjoying the style. That's certainly true of his most famous novels. Excuse me. Um, so I suppose that partially explains the mystery, but really the seeing the destruction of Earth, it's just it's something that well, it would be a subgenre of fiction called the geographical nightmare if there were more examples of it. I can't think of many examples. There's Paul Anderson's After Doomsday, which is supposed to be taking place after the destruction of Earth, but really, in that case, Earth is still structurally intact. It's just that it's been wiped clean of life.
Yes.
In this story,
Go on.
though, it's blown up, and that ought to be so hard to take that one shouldn't want to read the story. But as I say, I really like it.
I do like it. I think there's something strange and infinitely more horrible. The idea that it's not that your home has been destroyed, but it literally does not exist anymore, right? It's just rocks somewhere. And there's a moment where Bert looks up to the sky right in the end, and he's hoping to see a meteorite or like a piece of survivable sinew of Earth, little pieces of it, but he doesn't, and he never will. And the idea that you could, even on a distant planet, look up into the sky and you know that Earth does not exist, you would not even be able to imagine that one of those little dots could be the solar system, that even if it is the solar system, that Earth is not there. Truly mind-boggling stuff. So actually, what did you think of the story?
Man, I have a lot of thoughts about the story. The first one that entered my mind when I was reading it was how similar it is to my own story. Especially was like the moment I came to the Great Ones, I was like, oh my god, this is like my book. And I swear to God, I've never read this story before, and everything that happened is a coincidence.
Yeah. We found you out.
I think Rob has read my stories before, and yes, there is a lot of similarities, except mine is my stories were a little bit more depressing than even John Wyndham's is, but quite aside from that, I think so first of all, I think John Wyndham has a way. This is not the first book where he had talked about where he had written a story set in a time where the apocalypse was in the background. It was just a thing that happened and a thing that is, and then he doesn't really go further into the details, and we're all kind of left to wonder what exactly happened. And it's mostly and the story has more to do with how the survivors of that Holocaust deals with the new world that they find themselves in. And the story that I'm thinking of in particular to that is the Chrysalids. And he does, and I think I feel like John Wyndham has this very powerful ability to just use this sort of backdrop and then to bring out a society that and go into quite a bit of detail without being overbearing. describing how people would function in the times after that catastrophe. I think reading this this short story, I think like the overwhelming feeling of loneliness is so well portrayed here. It's a very quiet sort of loneliness. It's not
Yeah.
raving. It's not weeping. It's just like reading it, I could clearly feel that Bert is very, very lonely.
It's an old wound that will never heal, and each time he looks up into the sky, it will just open up again.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I think he doesn't even realize it.
Mm.
I think
He doesn't want to realize it, I think, XJ. I think he sort of like pushed the trauma out of his mind to be like, no, I'm not feeling it anymore. I'm just a drifter. This is my life now, right? I think that's what's happening.
That is a very astute observation. Yes, indeed, it's a willful, well, not willful because he doesn't know. I don't think, but he is a very, very lonely man, and that feeling of being adrift is not just very well penned, and really comes out in a very understated way that John Wyndham has of bringing out certain emotions, but he is quite literally adrift most of the time on his little sampan punt boat thing that he crafted himself. It's
a drug, isn't it? The wandering is his version of a drug to
indeed.
His release from the pain, let's put it that way, because you don't have to think if you're constantly walking.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course at the end we see like this Martian woman Annika offered him a place to stop, a place to rest his feet, and a place to call home.
Yeah.
It's not the home that he wants, but it is some place that he could make home if he wanted to. And he refused it. So there are a lot of very powerful themes just crammed into this very short. It is a very, very short story. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's let's see, how would I describe this? It's one of those very comfortable reads, I would say. It's like you could settle into your couch with a cup of coffee, maybe some nuts nearby, and you could just settle in, open the book, read it, and then get carried away by John Wyndham's masterful writing, which is actually just precisely what I did. All right, well, that's my take. What about you, Nikki?
Nice.
Tell us.
Well, so there's a lot to, as actually said, there's a lot to dive into here, but I think I'll focus on two elements that I think are the most powerful ones in this story. And first of all, it's, of course, the existential dread of not having a home. And it is something that I, for example, can deeply relate to, because most of my life I felt like I have no home and have nowhere to go back to. So, of course, that is, to juxtaposition that to Earth itself being gone, that's different, right? But at least I can begin to understand how that feels. And the idea of constant movement and wonderment, it makes a lot of sense. because that means that you cannot pay attention to the thoughts you have within your mind. And when it comes to Bert as a character, he is all about action. He wants to act. He wants to do something. And there is a particular set of people that he mentions that said that, like, no, we should turn around and we should go to Earth. Right? Those few on that day in the spaceship. And I believe Bert was one of those people. Because he wonders many times in his mind about, at least it would be better if I just died on Earth. And he himself tries to convince himself that he doesn't feel this way. Because he talks about, like, well, my mother was dead and my father was old. So, and as soon as he sort of starts putting this in front of us, his arguments start strong and they become weaker. Notice that change. My mother's dead. Okay, that's a good argument. You don't have any attachments. My father was old. 3 times worse than as an argument that you shouldn't feel anything, because he was still alive. He was still a living, breathing person. It no matter how old your family is, it's not gonna make it any better. So it's a coping mechanism, and it's very interesting to me how that transpires. So I think that theme, the coping and the failure of, because in the end he will fail at coping. In the end he will have to confront. And this, as Robert discussed it and described it, drug of constant wonderment, will in the end have to cease, because he will have to confront his most terrible of all fears, the fact that Earth does not exist anymore and everything's gone. Right. So that's one aspect that the story does really well. And the other, and it has to be said, there is this sense of wonder to be on planet Mars that is put against this existential dread. And the flavor of the two together, it really is, for the lack of a better word, delicious. The idea of juxtaposing such terrible situation with the fact that the story is described so beautifully and there's such vivid imagery, and most people in the story, there's no bad person. There's not a single villain or someone to overcome or even somebody that we hate. Now, of course, there are descriptions of crimes and terrible things that happen to add to the dread, which I kind of felt like, okay, is this when this happened, I thought to myself, is the story going to slowly become a horror story? Right. When he began to talk as to what happened to the survivors straight after, like the poor two stewardesses who got murdered by the men from Earth. It's an interesting aspect of the story, and probably truthful in how horrible sometimes survivors act. But again, it is not something that is put any accent upon. There is no true evil to fight. It's done. Evil has won. Whatever has happened has happened. The Earth is gone. What are you gonna do now? Right? And yeah, I mean, that's actually something that I really like, is that we're not even told what destroyed Earth or why. Because if Bert knew that there was an enemy to fight or a person to be blamed, that's where he could focus himself on. But he doesn't have even that. He doesn't have the luxury of having an enemy, of having someone to point his finger and say, that's their fault. This is why Earth is gone. It's a brilliant move to not have a reason explained or revealed to anyone, especially the characters.
I'll just cut in here.
Knowledge is in short supply in this story, isn't there? They don't know what destroyed Earth. They don't know who the great ones were.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know anything much.
No, they know
about
nothing.
real life.
I will just cut in here, and maybe Rob, maybe you can help me out a little bit here, because I've read all of John Wyndham's novella, just not the short stories, and the unfinished one I didn't touch. But this particular author, he seldom does he have an actual enemy to fight against. Most of the time, it is a the obstacle that the protagonists struggle against are concepts like inertia, bigotry, fear, loathing, that sort of stuff. And like, I think the only story I've read where it had an actual physical enemy that you could point to was the Midwich Cuckoo.
Well, what about the Croc and Wakes? The Earth has to deal with an invasion.
It's true, but for like the majority of the time in Kraken Wakes, the aliens might as well have not been there. They seldom make an appearance. We never get to hear anything from their side, and most of the time it is humans struggling against their own inertia that brought them to whatever it was.
Well, they're struggling against the effects that created by the aliens. They can't actually get to grips with the aliens because their environments are so different. But the aliens are fighting humans by remote control, aren't they? Or rather, they're trying to destroy us indirectly. And in the day of the Triffids, of course, the enemies, if you can call them enemies, they are the Triffids themselves. It's a competition for space, if you like, between two species who naturally try and destroy the other or prey on.
It is. I guess what I'm trying to say is it is seldom malice that.
Yes, I see your point there. Yeah, I see your point there. It's not malice. You're quite right. That point comes out in the interview with John Wyndham on the telly, which Nikki gave us a link to. Wyndham doesn't want to say that the enemies of humanity are evil. They're just competitors, if you like. It's exterminate or be exterminated.
Yeah.
This is the first time that I've ever read anything by Mr. Wyndham.
Well, I was introduced to Wyndham as part of school, man. It was a literature class, and the text that we were reading is The Chrysalids, right beside The Merchant of Venice. And I hated The Merchant of Venice.
I guess you like The Chrysalids.
I love The Chrysalids, and I love it so much I went and dug out all of John Wyndham's other novellas. Well, because short stories are just not my thing. So I never sought out the short stories.
He says on like episode 37 of a podcast
I know,
about
right?
short stories.
Exactly.
It's not really my thing anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
Short story.
Anyway. Yeah. I'm very sad that I won't have any more John Wyndham stories to read. That's my take. Yeah.
Wow. There is a sequel to the story apparently, and it is called No Place Like Earth. It was
Must be.
It was written in 2003. Or published.
Published in 2030. That's in the future.
3
Okay.
3-0.
Is
Yeah?
that a short story? Because I don't recall a novella of that
Yeah,
title.
yeah, it's a short story.
Blimey, I didn't know anything about this. I thought that perhaps it had been televised in the old science fiction TV series Out of the Unknown under the title No Place Like Earth.
Oh, there's a sequel called No Place Like Earth.
Gosh, well, Jumping Jupiter, I never knew that.
That is a delightful find. A very delightful find.
I was about to ask Robert, so what did you think about the sequel? But never mind. Maybe we'll find that out in some other episode of Roll of a Tangent. But yeah, without knowing what pertains in the sequel and so on and so forth, no, I would then move on to what do you think is the strongest scene in this short story, and why?
Either the first or the last part
Okay,
of it.
okay. Explain your reasoning.
Well, in a way, his boat, which he lovingly describes, is his home. He built it himself and he chugs along with it. And I just feel inveigled into wishing that I had a boat like that and I could forever chug along in the canals of Mars. And the last scene shows that you can't have it both ways. It shows it very elegantly that you can either drug in Bert's situation, you can either drug yourself with continual vagabondage, or you can fall in love with a Martian woman, but that reawakens your potential feelings. And once your feelings are awakened, then the feelings you don't want are awakened as well. You can't have the one without the other. And so you get overwhelmed with the sheer horror of the callous universe in which we live, that could do something like destroy your home world. So that's the effectiveness of the last scene.
What about you, XJ?
I think like Rob, I didn't think much of the last scene, but the most powerful scene for me would have been the very, very beginning, when he was describing, when John Wyndham was describing like the situation that Bert finds himself in, and of course the boat that chugging along this great Martian canal. I found it particularly striking that he talks to his ship engine, and when he finds out when he realizes he is talking to his ship engine, he stops and does a little bit of he scolds himself for talking to the ship engine, and then went right back to talking to the ship engine. It's a very, very powerful way of describing his loneliness without having to actually use the word lonely. I thought that was a very, very powerful foreshadowing of what is going on in the man's mind. And I really just like how in the entire scene, this feeling of being of needing companionship is just like so powerfully projected without actually using those words. Yeah.
It's a good scene, definitely. For me, it would have to be when Bert drifts in his mind and he completely forgets about the fact that someone else is talking to him and something else is going on, and he drifts into the deep corners of his mind palace. And the scene goes from, oh, well, that's pretty bad. Yeah, that's not good that people are like stuck here. Oh, something happened to Earth. Well, that's worse. Oh, the Earth is gone. Oh, that's horrible. Oh, everyone who is alive here were basically children when they came to this planet. Oh my God. Oh, there was murder. What? So the progression of how horrible everything is really well built. And I like that it doesn't end with what I think most writers would end it on. And the worst part was Earth is gone. Uh, Earth and its destruction is showcased to you in the middle of this passage, so that you have time to sit and think about how horrible that is. And then it ends on the most psychologically terrible thing, which was like, even those survivors, you want to feel bad about them. They murdered 2 women, right? And the idea that although man has survived Earth, the horrible parts of society survived with him. That being the last punch to that whole situation. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I felt what Robert talks about all the time, where the author grips you and sort of drags you through the story. And that paragraph, after that point, I said to myself, like, I mean, he could start doing the snows of Kilimanjaro here, and that'd still be like 10 out of 10 story just for this paragraph. It's fine, even if Bert, becomes this decrepit dude who only thinks about his life.
He is a decrepit dude, though.
Well, he is very redeemable in the story, at least.
Most of John Wyndham's protagonists are written somewhere along those lines, I think. Just people dealing with things.
People dealing with pain and sin.
I'm just thinking through all of the stories that I read, and John Wyndham has a peculiar way of he usually writes first person perspective, and the first person in his writings all tend to be quite has a feeling of like being a bystander, a very passive sort of the most heroic personnels are usually not the narrator himself.
Well, they're capable, aren't they? They're capable people, his protagonists.
They are capable, but the most capable are usually somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular story, though, there aren't any other characters to focus on except Annika. So
yeah.
Anyway, actually, I was going to I wanted to talk about the setting of the story, because no discussion about stories from me is complete without talking about the setting. And I think like, and I just love the way John Wyndham just sort of implies certain things and then just never explains to you what actually went on. Just like he described the destruction of Earth, he implied the reason, but he never actually went into it. And then he writes about spaceships coming in from Jupiter, and people living on Venus and how hot it must be up there. And you're like, okay, so there at the very least, humanity had achieved intrastellar space flight, and they do so on a regular basis. And something had happened that had destroyed Earth, and we don't know anything about all these other parts of humanity because the people on Mars are basically stranded. And then you have the Martians, who are actually just humans that are thinner and more fragile because of the gravity, with a different mindset. And then you have this suggestion, just a suggestion, really, of the great ones and their civilization. And one can't help but wonder, who are the great ones? Where have they gone to? And what were they like? And who and how was it? How is this universe structured such that the Martians are almost indistinguishable to humans, to the point where they could intermarry, and I assume they have children too.
Yeah, I hope that it's not some boring explanation like a prehistoric interstellar civilization settled on both Mars and Earth. I hope it's actual convergent evolution, so that the Martians really are Martians. They really are honest.
Yeah,
Martians.
yeah, and I did wonder. Well, it couldn't have been convergent evolution, I don't think, because John Wyndham did suggest that the great ones had a enormous stranglehold over a very strong hold over the Martians at the very least. They could have been devolved great ones, perhaps, but
maybe those little boo something, those little bird things, are all that's left of the
great ones.
the great ones.
It would be very Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy after all. But yeah, what I as I read through the story, I can't help but wonder what the backdrop of it all is. Just like in a lot of his stories, I wonder about the backdrop of the story. I wonder about the what led to the cataclysm in the chrysalids. I wonder about the Jovians in the Kraken wakes. I wonder about the whole veracity of the aliens in Chalky. Is it Chalky or Chucky? Chalky.
Chalky, yeah.
Yes. It was done in such a way where I can't help but wonder, while it's very real as the story progresses, I couldn't help but wonder if it was all a figment of the boy's imagination.
No.
And
Chalky is the odd one out among the Wyndham's books, and that there isn't a ruthless struggle for existence. It's the only one of his books, I think. Well, Trouble with Lichen is borderline. You could say there's an impending struggle for existence between the long-lived and the short-lived. But in Chalky, there's no struggle at all.
yeah.
It's amazing.
All of these titles we're rattling off must be completely alien to Nikki.
I've no idea.
Yeah.
No clue.
But we're two very big fans of John Wyndham here, so you must suffer through us.
I have gathered.
You must suffer through this law drop. Very nerdy.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But that's kind of how I feel when you guys talk about Conan. Like,
well, I mean, now you've read way more Conan stories than I ever read anything by Mr. Wyndham, so.
That's true. We'll turn you into a John Wyndham nerd. Take my word for it.
I'll take it. I mean, I liked this story, right? I'm not against it. I think it's really hard to suggest any changes, because I think if you mess with any of this, the way it's written, it really relies on the next paragraph.
Yeah.
And the previous paragraph relies on the previous paragraph, and the previous paragraph relies on the paragraph in two paragraphs. Right? It's really well structured, I must admit.
and the not knowing things is part of the atmosphere of the story, isn't it? So if you
Yes,
started giving
indeed.
answers to these mysteries, you'd be turning it into a completely different story.
Indeed.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
That is what I can agree on, is the fact that it's good that nothing was answered.
And
And
you
I
wouldn't
think
get answers anyway. If the Earth blew up, the chances are whoever saw it from outside would have no chance of knowing how it happened.
Yeah.
I would say is unlikely anyway.
Unless there was some sort of a transmission. We're being attacked by blobulons, you know.
Yes,
that would
yes,
be
yes.
so cheap. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would
What do you
be
mean?
that would be so cheap, and that is so thoroughly modern.
Mm.
What, that we're being attacked by blah blah blah? Or what?
Yeah, that would be like the way TV series writers these days would deal with the mystery.
I expect in the Warhammer universe, it probably happens on a regular basis. That planets get blown up.
Literally, one of the most, one of the basic things that an inquisitor, which is basically like a highly valued official in the empire, in the Imperium, one of their basic job functions is to decide whether or not to call exterminatus on a world. And exterminatus basically means total annihilation of a planet. And there are hundreds and hundreds of millions of planets, and exterminatus happen almost daily. So losing a planet there means nothing.
No. But yeah, seriously, one's got to accept the fact that the Earth will one day have ceased to exist. Maybe not in any dramatic fashion, but the sun won't go on shining forever. I mean, you could say that long before the sun swells to a red giant, one could increase the Earth's orbit and finally create an artificial sun for it and go zooming across interstellar space, and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, after about 10 to the power of 31 years have gone by, proton decay will mean that matter as we currently know it won't exist anymore. So, you've got to face it. Nothing lasts forever.
Yes,
So,
but proton decay, we're talking about a time scale of not just billions of years.
No, that's why I said 10 to the power of 31.
Yeah, and so that far out, I think humanity will be gone first before
By the way,
matter goes away.
in the entire universe, there are molecules of 10 to the power of 80. Just to understand the scale, right? 10 to the power of 80 is the amount of molecules in the universe. So we're talking about numbers approaching that kind of stuff, I mean.
Yeah.
Even the potential swelling of the sun and its dying, that's billions of years away. And unless
problems for my kids,
it's problems for them to solve, unless somebody tomorrow decides invent something to hasten the process. I like the time scale is just so far out, man.
Oh, that sounds like a supervillain plot.
Totally.
Yes, I finally mastered the sun needle.
Totally. I watch Pinky and the Brain every morning. No.
I see. Well, I mean, if you do that, then everything makes sense, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
We now know where you get.
I mean, it does keep on ticking along, So sooner or later, no matter how distant a time is, eventually it'll arrive.
Yeah, you're right.
That-
we're not dismissing the fact
That's
that
absolutely
this is a
true.
thing.
Although
Yeah.
I think my main point is, by the time that ticking of the clock arrives, I think humanity would have been gone first. Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
We'll see, right? Well, we won't see.
We won't see. Correct.
But what's it called? There is still hope.
However, However, our successor race could very well see that. What do I mean by that? It will be the AI that overthrows us.
You think
Mark
that's
my
where
words.
it's all going?
Yeah, it'll be Skynet and the Terminators.
Oh man. I really don't want to have those like weird tubes from the Matrix in my mouth. Can we go without that? Yeah. Have you ever seen the Matrix, Robert?
Yes, I've seen
Yes,
The
yes.
Matrix. Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't seen any of the sequels, but I've seen.
You don't need that. Yeah, you don't need that. The first one's
I
fine.
had either the greatest of fortune or misfortune, depending on how you see it, to have watched Dark City just before I watched The Matrix. And
What's Dark City?
so Dark City is it is a much more depressing and grim dark version of the Matrix.
Uh-huh.
And because I've seen Dark City first, the Matrix kind of fell flat for me. Because Dark City was so much more powerful, I felt.
No, a lot of media suffers from, and I'll bring this back to Time to Rest in a clever way. But a lot of media today suffers from the idea of things being implied either too little or being thrown in your face. It seems that a lot of current influences which create the fact that you need to do things fast, and the attention span of an individual is much smaller. A lot of these minute details get lost. But I think Time to Rest has the perfect combination. You have enough implied horror, once again, as I said, mixed in with beautiful imagery and the daily life of an individual. And that mix, you could read this and you could not see any of those existential horrors before the paragraphs about Earth and the murders and stuff, right? Or you could already start feeling that something is deeply wrong right from the start, which is how it went for me, because I was reading the first few pages and I thought to myself, it's really peaceful, but everything's old and he's alone and he's going to these Martians. Where are all the other humans? What's happening here? And so on and so forth. So I was already thinking like, okay, something's gone wrong. But I never thought it was to this extent. And when it comes to like Matrix, I think that there is a lot of implied horror that they don't talk enough in the movie about. And there is, there's way too much time spent on on Keanu Reeves training in this cool simulator. Oh, I know kung fu. Like those scenes. Like if you're gonna make a movie about the fact that humanity lost to AI, maybe do a little bit more horror before you go like, I don't know, what was that about? It was like a comedy at the end of the day.
You would like Dark City a lot, Nikki.
Yeah.
Check it out.
I'll have a look. I'll have a look at Dark City. Yeah.
Sorry, I've just realised what destroyed the Earth in Time to Rest. It was probably someone like Wilbur Whateley who succeeded in his aims and got in touch with Cthulhu, and they both. Oh
my God, this is why we did Dunwich Horror last week, because this is, this is a sequel.
Yeah. Yep.
There you go. The H.P. Lovecraft monsters finally got to the world thousands of years later, and now we've got this story.
Let's hope they don't get to Mars as well.
So the Dunwich Horror is kind of like the prequel?
Yeah. Dunwich Horror is the prequel, foreshadowing that one day evil will win, and then in the story, evil wins. There we go. And oh my, great old ones, XJ.
Yes, that's right.
The whispering ones, the ones beyond the shadow realm.
So those are the guys that settled.
Oh my god! I just realized that. That's crazy. Yeah, that's the guys who like hang out on Mars. That's where Cthulhu went at the end of Call of Cthulhu. He was like, "All right, peace, guys."
So we've solved the mystery then.
Yeah.
The Cthulhu and his gang just hangs out on Mars until.
Well, you know, I think they're quite benign, the Martian ones, because they built all these canals, and then obviously they said to themselves, right, we'd better not let these humans get too advanced, otherwise they'll just blow up the world. So we'll make sure that they are mechanically inept, and we'll just fade from the scene and let them enjoy their canals and things which we built for them.
Do you know the sort of like the beginning of Cthulhu mythos, right? That the ancient old ones came to Earth, and then they had a war against each other, and then they sort of went to slumber and allowed these decrepit, not decrepit, sorry, these young creatures who kind of have some intelligence to maybe thrive one day to then reap upon them. That's basically what you just said, but for Martians.
Right.
So maybe.
Motivation, you know.
All right.
Oh, come on, Robert. Did you talk to an old one? You don't know.
So I guess John Wyndham might just have been a pen name for H.P. Lovecraft.
Well, maybe he survived. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe he is a great old one, and he's still out there somewhere.
He probably is.
It's like the who really wrote Shakespeare industry, you know.
only we know who wrote Dumbledore and this story, but yes, it's exactly like it. I like this conspiracy though. Man,
we could write for the short story challenge. Maybe we can write a story about this. You know, about H.P. Lovecraft, who is actually a great old one, and is still waiting in the shadows.
I mean, it doesn't sound too far-fetched. Let's put it that way. I know that there is a sequel, but because none of us know what the sequel is about, that grants us the unique advantage to speculate. So, because none of us have seen it. What do you think the story of No Place Like Earth is?
No Place Like Earth. I think it sounds too good to be true. I mean, I hope it's true, but
it's true. I found it. I can send it to you.
All right. I just feel it's probably a renaming of this story. No.
No. It's a new story.
Sizzling Saturn.
It first appeared in the collection Exiles of Asperis, and it was then, and then it was also published in a book of the same name, No Place Like Earth, in 2003.
Gosh.
Must have been something that was in his estate that never got published until 2003 then. Very nice.
When did he die?
1969.
Jeez. Wow. Man. My mother and father were both born in 1969.
Oh. So an important year.
Yes.
A good year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I can't wait to dig into that. I can never get enough of John.
Right, but what's our what's it called? What's our predictions? What's No Place Like Earth is about? As Bert.
Probably it won't even focus on Bert.
Well, you know what? I agree with that. My prediction is No Place Like Earth is about his like Martian half-son or some shit.
Could be.
And they sort of like trying to deal with their own problems.
I mean, it's really fascinating. John Wyndham's not known for writing sequels. Is there more than one book to The Day of the Triffids?
No.
There aren't any to The Midwich Cuckoo 2, am I right? There were 2 movies for that, but the book itself is just by itself.
Yep. I bet the movies were rubbish. I've never seen them, but I'm just being pessimistic about movies.
Hey, there are some good movies.
Oh, I know, but movies of books,
Ah.
of science fiction books.
Well, I think actually Starship Troopers as a movie is way better than
Yes,
the.
That's
I think you're
actually
right.
true.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, I
actually
think you're right.
true. Sorry to all the
Um,
Heinlein fans out there, but we're not
yeah,
okay.
I think we're gonna have some pitchforks thrown at us.
It's much funnier anyway. The
Yeah.
That is
movie.
true. That is true.
The only good bug is a dead bug.
Damn. Would you like to know more? Oh, I love that movie. You know what? That's one of those interesting points where something that doesn't quite work in some aspects really works in a different media. I wonder if the snows of Kilimanjaro could be salvaged by us being shown of those moments on screen and
Yeah.
us not having like somebody describe it to us what that looked like, but actually seeing this man in those situations and having to think what he's thinking instead of seeing exactly what he's thinking.
Yep, I agree.
Could be. Well,
Um,
anyway, we're almost coming up to an hour, and I guess it's time for that segment of the day where we talk about our last thoughts. Last thoughts, anyone?
Yeah, okay, I'll start. Brilliant story, well written. I think John Wyndham has won me over with this short story. I'm definitely looking forward to reading more of his work. 10 out of 10. I can't find the fault in this one. 10 out of 10.
And you, Rob?
Yeah, I give it 10 out of 10, and I
Whoa,
must
what
say
a surprise.
I'm amazed that you guys like it so much. I'm sort of dreading this nice story being kind of thrown into the arena and getting savaged, but you've actually been quite merciful to it. So that's
Well,
great.
if you're bad all the time, then your subjects don't know what mercy means.
Mercy is not a word in my dictionary. I'm sorry.
You'd be a bad evil guy. You'd be a bad dictator. You have to show them a little bit of hope.
I totally would be H.P. Lovecraft if he still lived.
I don't think you want to say that.
Yeah, I would be like the great old one. I'm the guy hiding behind the cracks in the curtains.
The ultimate evil. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. So 10 out of 10 from Robert. Actually, what about you?
It's hard for me to give this a rating, but I like it a lot. I especially love just how quiet the whole story is. Just like it's a very reflective, introspective piece of writing. I highly recommend John Wyndham to anyone out there who is looking for a different kind of science fiction, one that doesn't have any pew-pews, but is nonetheless engaging.
Yeah. And this episode will be coming out around the time of Christmas and Boxing Day and so on and so forth. So I want to wish our viewers a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everyone. Oh, and to riff off that, we will be taking a break immediately after this and return in the new year. All right, and with that said, Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year, and may 2023 bring good tidings to you all.
Yep.
It has to be better, right?
Oh, you never know. Things can get much worse.
It's gotta be better. It can't all end in time to rest. Come on, guys.
Right. Well, with that very cheerful note from me, adios, people.
Goodbye. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.